Hmm? Okay. So on your notebooks, I want you to read this ancestor hymn, and I want you to list, and the key word here is list. Why a list is valuable? Because it actually separates detail by detail. So you can actually see, like I've got 5 things that I found interesting here. But before we start reading, let me just give you the background on this. You don't need your screens, so just close them, save your battery, right? You're not going to need your computer for probably the entire class. What you have in front of you is from, the, what are y'all showing you from? Let's do a quick review because it's been 3 years since we've seen each other. What book were y'all showing you from? Do you remember? The Zhou Jing, the book of documents. Jing, or classic of documents. Jing means classic. So that's the Zhou Jing. Zhou means book or document. So the classic of documents. Those are, just so you know, the book of documents are actually speeches that were written by Zhou kings. King Wan, King Wu, the Duke, and on down to maybe Wan, Wu, Cheng, Tang, on down to maybe the 7th or 8th generation of Zhou kings. So these are actually speeches that were written. Typically, they were put inside bronze vessels. Typically, not always, but typically. Those speeches were actually inscribed into bronze vessels that were then given to people for doing excellent things for the king. And he gifted them with a bronze vessel, which is a luxury object, a high status object. And they put it in a place of honor. Look at us, the king gave us something, right? So these things were very, very high status things, right? And they were used for ancestor rituals. We would put food, we would put wine, we would put food and wine in these vessels to serve to our ancestors and our ancestor sacrifices. So these are not just like furniture. These are religious objects. And they're also political objects because the king gave it to you, right? And so that sort of symbolizes your service to the king. It's supposed to bring loyalty too. Thank you. This is a very expensive thing. To make bronze, think of all the mining, the transportation of minerals and metals, all of the work that goes into casting them, on and on and on. Very expensive. So anyway, that's the book of documents. We can actually dig up bronze vessels, and depending on the layer of earth and the things around them, that tells us sort of the period, like the exact century even, that they belong to. And then we can actually go, that bronze vessel matches this document from the Zhou Jing. And so that means that this document from the Zhou Jing actually is accurate when it says this was written by so-and-so, right? It's wild stuff. It corroborates. So bronze corroborates the Zhou Jing. Now we're turning to the Shi Jing, the book of poetry, and the book of the classic of poetry. And that's what this is from. What is the classic of poetry? I think we talked about music and how the Zhou king would send people out to record the music, the songs coming out of the people's mouths. Did we not? Did we talk about that? I wish I could offer you tea. Oh, tired young man, I'm tired too. You need some, don't you? Yes, but our tea thing is broken, so we can't give you any tea. In any case, this is the second Confucian classic. Confucius didn't write it, Confucius loved it. The book of poems, the book of songs, the classic of poetry. They have a million annoyingly different names in English. It's 330 poems, all of them, except for 30, collected from different vassal states, as we talked about. And so they bring them back to the king's court, and they combine them into a book. And we can look at them, and some of them are bitches and hoes songs. Seriously. Some of them are just so lewd and vulgar and shocking. And so the king would go that state, there's something wrong with that state. Others of them are very happy, very thankful, all sorts of stuff. And so those states are well run. So it's actually organized, the book of songs, into the songs of the state of Wei, the songs of the state of Han, the songs of the state of on and on and on. But 30 of them, among which the one in front of you is included, are actually royal songs, royal hymns from the royal sacrifices and rituals to their ancestors. So what you got in front of you is from a book about music and bells in the ancient Zhou. So this is a work of scholarship, but he quotes the Zhou Ancestor hymn. You see there's poetry on it, right? So he's like talking about bells and what function music played in the Zhou rituals. But then he actually goes, and we see this in this poem from the Shijing, this hymn from the Shijing. Our focus is the hymn. So before you start reading, let me just tell you, this is a hymn that, as I just said, is the actual script that was spoken aloud. So you're hearing a 3,000-year-old voice here from the greatest king and the greatest dynasty, the most influential dynasty of all of China's history. The people who brought us the sage kings, the people who brought us Wen and Wu, right? Who influenced Confucius, and through Confucius influenced everything up to the present. This is a 3,000-year-old. It was spoken then, and if you read it with your inside voice, it's spoken now. What is the hymn? It's a hymn in which probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations, 6 generations. We're probably talking 5th or 6th generation king here, all right? So that would mean if it's the 5th generation, dad, granddad, great-granddad, granddad, great-great-granddad. King 1 would be the great-great-granddad of this person. Stay with me, I'm almost done. This is how it works. In the Zhou ancestor ritual, in which the king is trying to make his ancestors pleased and happy with him as a good king, it was set up like this. The king would serve the guest of honor in the ritual, who sat at the seat of honor. And that seat of honor was really one in which the king tried to invite the oldest ancestor, the first one, the founding father, his spirit. He's dead, right? So he tries to invite the spirit of all of the ancestors, but really our focus is to please the first one, the oldest elder, right? How do we do that? We've got a seat, and we want them to come, and we want them to enjoy the food and the wine and all of these things that they can't enjoy because their bodies are now worm food, right? Their bodies have long since turned to dust. How are they going to enjoy food and wine? Talk. How are they going to enjoy? There's the seat. How are they going to actually eat the food and drink the wine so they can go, God, that was good. Thank you. We're going to bless you. Talk. How would they do it? And 3, 2, 1. What sorts of ideas? Maybe this, maybe that. Right? We're practicing thinking here, not like having the right answer. I heard talk over here. What do you guys have? What was your best answer? Having a representative. Anybody come up with anything else? I'm not saying right or wrong. Anybody else come up with anything? Having a representative? Yeah. Maybe they burn the food so that the smell and all that sort of thing, which is what the Hebrews did, right, with their sacrifice of lambs and goats and all sorts of stuff. And so the smell of it would go up. The Greeks did the same thing. The smell of it goes up, and the God was like, oh, I can't. Oh, it smells good. In which case, you're not really eating. You're just smelling good food. That's kind of frustrating. You guys were on track more. And that was not a bad answer because, again, that's how other cultures did it. Yeah, okay. So now let's take it one step further because here's where it gets deep. Who's going to be... Okay, so I heard you guys said a representative to push this thing forward because we have a lot to do today. The representative, I told you there's a chair there, and I, the king, am going to serve the person in that chair who is going to be the representative of the dead who are coming into that chair so they can taste and drink. Who would the logical person be to sit in that chair and represent? And here's the deep thing, be possessed by the spirits of the dead. Who would that logical person of that be? I'm the king, and I invite the spirits of my dead father, grandfather, and everybody else to come in and possess somebody sitting in this chair so I can feed them and give them wine and let them enjoy a good party. Who's the... Huh? The king himself? Nope. Good guess, but nope. His son, who said it? Oh, go girl. His son. Which son? Kings have many sons because they have many concubines. The oldest son. Why? Why the oldest son? Because they pass lineage? They pass lineage to everybody. What are you trying to say?
Yeah, they're the heirs.
They're the heirs. So the future king, as a boy, is sitting in that chair in the seat of honor. Picture him being 10 years old. Picture him being a sixth grader. Now, this is a once-a-year sacrifice because it's vast and grand. It's expensive. And we know that good kings don't, waste the money of the people, right? So if we do this more than once a year, we're like, the Shang Zhou, the last Shang king. Wine lake and meat trees, and let's just waste it. And everybody's daughters who we happen to fancy. We don't want to be that kind of person. So once a year. Where was I going with that? Give me a second. Okay, yeah, so a sixth grader, typically. Picture this kid. Oh, okay, so how many people do you think are coming to this once a year, and what people do you think are coming to this once a year royal festival ritual? What sort of people? Come on. Who are the guests? Royalty, that's the king. Who else? Huh? Nobles. Who are you going to... Nobles, and by nobles, okay, so vassals, is that what you're saying? Remember, we got the feudal system going here, so the vassals, the heads of every one of the fiefs, are also going to come from across the entire kingdom, from the Yellow Sea all the way over to the Wei River. They're going to come once a year. And the point here is this is a big and majestic thing. And who's the guest of honor? A 10-year-old. What effect do you think this is going to have on that 10-year-old? Psychologically. Huh? Discuss amongst yourselves. Will it make him pompous? I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. What effect is it going to have on Will in 5th grade to see that everybody is treating him like just the greatest king ever, and they're all just bowing to him and feeding him and all sorts of stuff, and getting him drunk too? They're getting him drunk. They're giving him wine, right? What effect is it going to have on this kid who's going to grow up to be the king? What possible effects? So there's no wrong answer. Please talk for 30 seconds. Okay, you've died down. Anything besides pompous? Arrogant? Egotistical? Damaged? It's once a year. So if they were doing this every night, yeah, the kid's going to be brain damage, alcohol poisoning, and, 1 billion dead brain cells, like high school juniors and seniors and sophomores and freshmen. Who are we kidding? We know what goes on. Okay. No other. Okay, I have one last question for you before we move on. Clearly, this golden age royal family, and in fact this civilization that wanted their kings to be Yao Shun and Yu sage king types, clearly they are going to be aware of the possibility that we just talked about. This is going to go to this kid's head. We're going to make this kid think, oh, I'm the swag master, right? They're not stupid people. Not being stupid people, what do you think they might do in order to keep this kid from becoming, I want to curse, a blank? Fill in your blank, It can start with a couple of different D's that are in my head. How might they order this ritual so that the kid does not become, rhymes with boosh, rhymes with lick, a bad boy? What might I'm so sick. What might they do? Please go ahead. What might they do in this ritual to keep this from happening? I know, you're sitting at a dead table. I apologize for them. Good girl. You have your microphone thing now? No? What? You're sick today? Hmm. Hmm?
Like, why do they do this ritual? Is there a name for the ritual?
It's the royal ancestor ritual. It's the ancestor sacrifice. Okay, what, any, Daniel, I wanted to call you David, I got the DA part. Look, here we are, I memorized your names and then proceeded to forget them because it's been 3 years since I've seen you. I don't like semester 2. All right, so, why did I even ask? Oh, because Daniel was like, I can't answer this one. Anybody come with any answers on this one? Oh.
So we won't do it again next year.
If you're a bad boy, you won't get to do this next year? That's a pretty good one. But how? Oh, now I'm playing seminar person by saying, yes, but I'd like to challenge that because what would that do to the ancestors who, after all, is really the point is we're trying to make the ancestors happy, right? And we wouldn't be able to, they'd be ticked. Okay. At this point now, I want you to read, and I want you to list details in the journal that simply interest you. The focus, again, is not on everything written in the paragraph. The focus is the poem. You can quickly read through the paragraphs and then hit the poem. And just list very, very briefly the details that you find interesting. How might they be interesting? You might compare this to a church service. Do you hear me? A Western church service. Compare and contrast. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Look for patterns, too.